Welcome, everybody. Thanks for finding the time and joining us today. We are really happy and proud to share with you this result of 9 months of hard labor that conceived together through a lot of helpful assistance with all these stakeholders mentioned earlier, both platforms, associations, and various research partners. So thank you very much. In the first section, I will present some overview introduction into what we did and how we did it, and then give you a few key numbers about the market overview. We will then switch to more specific or focused insights into the platforms, the fundraisers or campaigns, and then to the backers or investors, depending on each model. So the overall objective of this report is basically to give you a nice overview about the current status of the European crowdfunding market, and to do it from multiple perspectives with respect to platforms, fundraisers, and backers. We started this by mapping and updating existing lists of all the platforms that are operating in Europe. We combined our own well-established networks together with very deep desktop research, and we visited each website and really analyzed it in detail to make sure that the relevant company falls within our definition of crowdfunding platform. So unlike other reports, we don't use the broad term alternative finance, but we focus specifically on crowdfunding. And this means that platforms are open to the general public, both from the supply and the demand side. So people can be both borrowers and lenders, investors and fundraisers. It's not open only on one side. In this respect, it excludes some other digital lending platforms and so on. So keep that in mind. We sent this survey to all the platforms and made it available in multiple languages, thanks to translations from our partners in English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, and Czech. And of course, other languages would have been helpful, but we felt that that was good enough. In addition, we did a visit to each of the platforms' website to analyze their legal status and other critical information. And finally, we got a great collaboration and contribution from our partner Crowdfunding Center in the UK in sharing data about European operations of Kickstarter and Indiegogo platforms in particular. Then we moved into quality checks, and that meant looking into any suspicious entries, too high, too low, or too strange types of entries. We contacted the platforms directly and verified, and if needed, corrected this type of entries. If there were more than one entry for each platform, we chose the one that was most complete, and that's how we proceeded while we deleted the other entry. In terms of distribution, this was sent to you by every possible channel, by email, through associations, through nagging on LinkedIn. Some of you needed 1 reminder, some of you needed 20 reminders, but we were persistent as much as we could. So thanks to all of you who contributed. And again, we wish to really thank all these associations here. And if I'm allowed to highlight, I really wish to thank Florence from Financement Participatif France and to this is Slovak and Czech crowdfunding associations for doing a little extra job in trying to get the platforms responses. So special thanks goes to you. In terms of the process, we did all the preparatory work and the distribution to March, between March and September 2023, including data collection. As you can see, it's half a year of running after the platforms to get answers and sending these reminders. During September to October, we did the analysis, the quality checks, and the refinement and the building of the whole worksheets, charts, and tables. During October and December, we wrote it up and had several rounds of both internal and external reviewers. And this is time to thank the 4 external reviewers who viewed the full report and gave their feedback. Ramona from University of Latvia, Natalia from Western Norway University of Applied Sciences, and to Ula and Joanna from University of Gdansk in Poland. So thank you very much for the time and effort. Finally, we are here at this moment of distribution and launch, today sharing with you the results. As you can see, this is a very long process and quite a demanding process. The only way to cut it short is if we got responses quicker. So in the coming years, I'm sure you will all be speedier in filling those surveys. So thanks in advance. We have full responses from 125 platforms that represent 21% of the total population of European platforms. So yes, we would have liked to have more, but we believe we have quite a good representative samples of all relevant platforms. Keep in mind, many of these platforms are very small and don't always have full overview about their activities. Out of them, 43 platforms are offering equity services, 53 offering lending models, and 29 offering non-investment models. Now we divide our analysis along two lines. One is the model and one is the region. When we talk about model, we sort of cluster together different models under one roof. Under equity, we include all platforms that offer equity crowdfunding, fractional ownership of real estate, revenue and profit sharing, royalty payments, community shares, debt-based securities, STO and ICOs. In lending, it's peer-to-peer lending for consumer, business, and property lending, as well as mini bonds and microfinance with pro-social lending. And finally, under non-investment, we have donation, subscription or patronage models, and reward-based crowdfunding. Next, we group the countries together based on what does the Dutch authorities do and how they view Europe. So we follow this practice. We have a northern region for Europe that includes basically the Nordic, Baltic, and British Isles. We have Southern Europe, which is the Balkan, Adriatic, Southeastern Europe, plus some Mediterranean islands. Western Europe is any country west of Germany, from Germany and westwards. And on Eastern Europe, it is Bulgaria, Czechia, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Ukraine. We did not collect data from Belarus and Russia at this time. And despite looking for data, we found no evidence of crowdfunding activity in Andorra, Kosovo, Moldova, San Marino, and the Vatican. So this is a brief overview. And now we move into starting to share with you the details. The first the piece of information is to see how well are the markets or the different countries covered. And here we check how many platforms are operating in each country. We see that the countries that report the highest number of platforms operating is Germany, UK, and France. In Germany, 113 platforms, in the UK, 100 platforms, and in France, 96 platforms. Two other countries, despite a smaller size, do represent a large number of platforms. As far as we know, Netherlands with 60 and Switzerland with 49. Of course, when we look into this per capita, because it also relates to the size of the population and the general economy, the smaller the country, the easier it is to receive a higher ranking. So we see small countries like Monaco, Malta, and Iceland in top ranks with very few platforms, but also small populations. But probably the most striking outlier here is Estonia, that despite being a small country, still has 32 platforms reporting operating there. Now, because we only have 21% of the population, we're not going to talk about total volumes, but we're going to talk about volumes per platform. So on average, European platforms in Europe in 2021 report an average volume of 16 million euros each. And in 2020, that increased to 19 million euros, or 17% growth. When we divide this by model, first, in terms of equity, we see that the average volumes in 2021 was close to 15 million euros. In 2022, it was 15.7 million euros on average, and that is a 5.3% increase. We see that the range of between 10 and 20 million being raised is increasing. The share of platforms that report higher volumes, 20 million euros and above, has declined in 2022. On the lending side, the other situation exists, that high volume platforms actually have increasing share of the total market. Platforms raising more than 20 million euros were around 33% in 2021 and now are close to 47% in 2022. On average, they've raised 19.8 million euros annually, And in 2022, on average, they raised 24.4 million euros. So this is 23% increase, despite all challenges in 2022 for the lending sector. On the non-investment side, the volumes are much lower. On average, platforms report around 9.4 million in 2021, very small growth to 9.6 on average in 2022. All in all, a growth of 2%. And we see the share of platforms that report very high volumes, which means around above 20 million euros shrinks, while the mid-range volumes of 1 to 5 million increases from 3% to 23%. When we look at this by region, we see that on average, platforms raised 14% higher volumes in 2022 in Eastern Europe, around 9% higher volumes in Western Europe, 1.5% or so in Northern Europe, and 6.5% up in Southern Europe. But keep in mind, the volumes in Northern Europe on average are much higher than all other regions, close to double as much as Eastern and Western Europe, and 5 times as much as in Southern Europe. So although it's a lower percentage growth, we are talking about larger sums overall, with an average volume of 27 million euros in 2022 in Northern Europe. So to wrap these type of insights into 5 bullet points, it's a 17% growth in volume raised by platforms in Europe between 2021 and 2022, most of it concentrated in lending. Fastest growing volumes per platform in Eastern Europe, 14% up. Fastest growing volumes per platform by model is lending, 23% up. Highest volume per platform by region in 2022 is in Northern Europe with 27 million per platform, and highest volume per platform 2022 by model is lending, on average reporting 24.4 million euros in 2022. Yeah. Next, we went out and asked the platforms to what extent do they believe that the public is sufficiently knowledgeable about crowdfunding. We've been talking a lot about regulation, but we haven't talked about education enough in this respect. And the success of the platform heavily depends on relevant stakeholders actually understanding what this is all about. Across models and across region, we see that the majority of platforms claim that basically the public is generally not sufficiently knowledgeable about crowdfunding. 70% of equity platforms claim that, and 67% of lending platforms claim that. When we look at it by region, we see that 69% of platforms in Eastern Europe say that public is not sufficiently knowledgeable, 61% in Western Europe, 57% in Southern Europe, and 51% in Northern Europe. All in all, we have a lot of work to do in terms of education and knowledge. Next, we wanted to do something special that hasn't been done before and create some sort of a crowdfunding market readiness index, sort of trying to see how countries or markets stand in comparison to each other while controlling for the relative size of their economies. So before we reveal these rankings, we want to explain how they work. So they have 6 indicators that form this index score. The 6 indicators include: first, the number of platforms per capita, as in per population, volumes per capita, average number of backers on platforms in country per capita, average number of fundraisers, which means how many campaigns or loans on platforms in a country per capita, share of the licensed investment platforms that operate in the country, and the share of platforms agreeing that the public knowledge is sufficient. So all higher scores on all of these things will indicate the higher index scores. Now, we only included countries where we had at least 3 platforms responding with the full information to create this type of index. So now we will move next and show the results. And according to our analysis and based on our limited database, we can say that the Netherlands seems to be the most crowdfunding ready or developed market today in Europe, surprisingly following by Norway and Denmark. Norway and Denmark have strong positions on most indicators, with one exception, which is the perceived knowledge of the public. Among the larger countries where per capita rankings are more difficult to achieve because the economy is bigger and the population is larger, then the UK and France lead the table there, and they score highly on most of these type of indicators. And where they score relatively lower is on the number of backers per platforms and and the number of fundraisers per platform. So that is it, to give you a little overview about the general overview of what's going on. And now we'll dive deeper into each stakeholder in particular. And the first to be presented these platforms. And for this purpose, I'm happy to invite Anna and Karsten to share with you the insights we have about platforms. Thank you.